Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Almassian. I know it's quite late. I don't usually do late live streams, especially on YouTube and Rumble. However, I felt like I have to do a video today because yesterday I couldn't post. Look, I'm only 36 years old, and despite that, I'm old enough to remember when politics was a business for the serious people and a business for the people who are quite aware of geopolitics and also how to manage the affairs of their own countries and to serve the interests of their own countries, right? However, we are living in an era where we're witnessing growing number of politicians, leaders in politics, in military sectors who are not only incompetent but also dangerous to humanity because their policies are pushing humanity to the verge of a huge conflict that could end the humanity the way we know it since we opened our eyes. One of the politicians who is very incompetent, who or he's I would say he is a pathological liar. If this guy speaks 10 words, 9 of them are lies, is Justin Trudeau. And personally, when he came to power, I was one of his admirers. I was fooled by Justin Trudeau. I thought he's a real progressive person. He is a Democrat. He is a person who would bring change and a positive change, not only in his own country, but also on the international scene. Because, in my opinion, back then, I thought that Justin Trudeau is a peaceful person, he is an empathetic person, and his so-called progressive and feminist approach will bring peace and prosperity for the rest of the world, only to discover that he has a small fascist in his heart and he's trying to project that on others, and he's doing virtue signaling on the rest of the world and also on his own people. Remember what Justin Trudeau described the protesters when the truckers went against the vaccine mandates. He called them Nazis and he closed the bank accounts of the organizers and even the donors. This is a fascistic act, right? And recently, Justin Trudeau, he tweeted and said, accused the parents who are protesting against the gender ideology and imposing and forcing and choking their children with this gender ideology in the kindergartens and in schools. These people were just saying, leave our children alone, leave our kids alone. But despite that, Justin Trudeau accused them of being homophobic, transphobic, and all this stuff. And the funny thing about Justin Trudeau is that in the past decade and two, he opened the doors for a lot of refugees to come to his own country and migrants. And also, lots of them were from Middle Eastern, North African, and Islamic countries. And he thought that when these people come to his country, they will be grateful and they will vote for his political party, right? But because of his policies, especially when it comes to forcing, like not giving the people the choice to choose what lifestyle do they want to live for themselves and for their kids, especially when it comes to the gender ideology and the LGBTQ plus community, etc., only then the communities from the Middle East, North Africa, and the Islamic communities, they started to protest against Justin Trudeau, something that I believe he didn't expect. So this person, Justin Trudeau, this week, he received the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, and they had a really fun time together, it seems, because I was seeing the videos. They were laughing a lot together while the people were in Ukraine are still dying. With lots of people are dying actually there. And I was fascinated by the how the Parliament or the House of Commons received Justin Trudeau here, and I want to make just a comparison. Let's watch first how did they receive him. Like not a single person who is not clapping for for Zelensky. It's serious. Conservatives and the liberals. So this is a democracy, right? Everybody has to agree on one thing. This is a democracy. It's amazing how they are clapping. Like if this happens in North Korea, they would call the North Korean leader a dictator. Crazy, it's crazy, it's crazy, it's crazy. This is not normal, guys. This is not normal, seriously. So first things first, if this happened in North Korea, if this happened in Syria, if this happened in any country that this so-called civilized world doesn't like, then they would have called this a dictatorship. They would have called this that they are forced to all to stand and to clap and applause for the Führer, for the leader, right? So my opinion, this is a psychological game. And I had my commentary on this. I said, this is an old psychological trick where some politicians use to pump up the ego of a leader. They want to do their bidding, just like Zelensky in this case, or change political behavior. In this case, I mean Bashar Assad. For example, in 2008, they did the same with Assad by receiving him in Paris among so-called world leaders, rolling him the red carpet and promising him a bright future if he only shakes hands with Israel's Ehud Olmert. Why I say this? Because in 2008, the Sarkozy, he thought that it's a brilliant idea to bring Assad to Paris, to invite him to one of the national events of France, and to give him a leadership treatment, rolling the red carpet and pumping up his ego so that he would just be embarrassed and feel like he's overwhelmed with positive emotions, and then he just shakes hands with Ehud Olmert. This was the case, and Assad was strong enough to refuse. But they're doing the same thing, but vice versa now with Zelensky, that they are giving him the impression that he's doing something heroic. He's not doing something heroic. It's like sending a deer, a small deer, in the jungle while you're clapping this deer and sending him in front of tigers, in front of lions, so that he get killed. Like in the Ukraine case, if anyone who has the two functioning brain cells know that Ukraine cannot win this war against Russia, against a nuclear power. What's the end game when these politicians say we will support Ukraine as long as it takes, right? What does it mean? We will support Ukraine till victory. What is the definition of victory? Please, guys, somebody explain to me what is the definition of victory in this regard. Do they really think that they are going to push the Russian forces all from the territories that Russia captured recently? Like, I would say, like, if the Ukrainians threaten the presence of the Russian forces in Crimea, this would be World War III. This would be a nuclear war. Any sane person who understands the importance of Crimea and the Navy seal of Russia in the Black Sea and its importance in the Black Sea and also for the Mediterranean understand that this is a geopolitical game where Russia knows that there is a theory of the land power and the sea power, and Russia cannot make itself only land power, because this was one of the also fatal mistakes during the Cold War, that Russia didn't invest much in the seas, especially in the warm oceans, and they lost. This was not the only reason, but this was one of the reasons. Russia knows this case, and the Chinese know this. That's why the Chinese are developing lots of navies and lots of like jets for their fleets in the oceans, right? Everybody knows this case. So Zelensky, he gave a speech, of course. I just want to show you a small part, a segment of what he said. So this is Zelensky in the parliament. He wants to punish Russia.
It is genocide. What Russian occupiers are doing to Ukraine. And when we want to win, when we call on the world to support us, it is not just about an ordinary conflict. It is about saving lives of millions of people. Literally, physical salvation. Ordinary women and men, children, our families, whole communities, entire cities. Russia's destruction of Mariupol, of Volnovakha, or Bakhmut, or any other city or village in Ukraine must not go unpunished.
Okay, two things here. First things first, you engage in diplomacy with the Russian side. Because theoretically speaking and practically speaking, Ukraine cannot win this war. If you want to spare lives, engage in negotiations, spare some lives and also territories for your own people. I do not understand why this twisted. So, in the past 2 years, Ukraine tried everything. Like they received all sorts of weaponry, over 200 billion of aid, military aid, to fight against the Russians, right? I would understand that Ukrainians want to defend their country against what they see a foreign occupier, foreign aggressor. Okay, this didn't work for 2 years. Like tens of thousands of Ukrainians are dead. Tens of thousands, guys. We're speaking about tens of thousands. And they're hiding the numbers from the people. They don't show the real numbers. Like there is a huge number of Ukrainian families now without men. How do you think these families will continue? How do you think these families will survive and sustain in the future? Without foreign aid, they cannot survive, right? And with the amount of corruption in Ukraine, it makes it impossible even for the foreign aid to be translated into some tangible aid and help for the Ukrainian people. These are things that people need to understand, that the approach of military confrontation with Ukraine proved to be unfruitful. It's not fruitful. It's not changing the military equation. If you see the map of control on Ukraine, over Ukraine, and after the counteroffensive, which there was so much hopes from the Ukrainian side, it seems that, to me, like the defensive lines, they couldn't break in, right? Or break through. So what's the alternative? Continue on the same policy? One time Einstein said madness is repeating the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Maybe try something else. I don't know. Maybe you don't want to pursue diplomacy. What's your plan B if the military confrontation is not going to work? It's for me, sometimes I'm very sad for the Ukrainians that they have to go through this all this madness. And here Zelensky, he's explaining why he doesn't want to organize elections. He says people are not willing to spend money on anything other than weapons. Like he says, this is how Zelensky explains his refusal to hold presidential elections. The greatest challenges for elections during a war are security concerns regarding the presence of observers, the voting of military personnel, residents of temporarily occupied territories, and Ukrainians abroad, as well as campaign financing. This is what he says, why he's not organizing
not
elections.
Hundreds of thousands, but millions of Ukrainians are abroad, and how to organize the voting process for that. We are currently saying that in Ukraine, which is absolutely fair, the society is responding harsh whenever the parliament or the government is willing to, to allocate money to a certain direction, which is different from weapons. I mean, the society is not ready to support that.
The society is not ready to support that, right, guys? But in Syria, so that they hold democratic elections. Like what kind of twisted mind is this? Like the same people who promoted an approach which is holding elections in Syria when 70% of the country was outside the hands of the government, in the hands of Al-Qaeda terrorists, Jaish al-Islam terrorists, ISIS terrorists, Ahrar al-Sham terrorists, and all these Muslim Bollywood maniacs. They wanted for Assad to resign, not to participate in elections, and at the same time, they wanted to hold elections. That was fine. But now, because Zelensky, the Saint Zelensky, we have to accept everything he says and accept everything he does without questioning. Otherwise, you're Putinist. Otherwise, you are spreading propaganda. Otherwise, your platform will be demonetized, or maybe you will be on the Ukrainian kill list. Your name will be published, your face will be put on the front pages. There will be details about you in the description below, so that people, if they see you in the street, maybe they abuse you, maybe they hit you, maybe they kill you, or maybe the Ukrainian intelligence, the SBU, maybe they come and murder you, just like they did with many journalists. They murdered journalists, they put car bombs. I simply sometimes I don't know what time we are living. And then comes Justin Trudeau at the height of this conflict in Ukraine, and this is what he's talking about: the mental health of the Ukrainians, and that his government will finance mental health institutions in Ukraine.
Friends, we gather today at a pivotal point in history. We've been led by President Zelensky, a great champion of democracy. The toll of this war on the mental health and well-being of Ukrainians is immeasurable. I know, First Lady Zelensky, you are dedicated to the work to address this. So today we are providing funding to support mental health care in Ukraine as we continue to applaud your tremendous leadership in these difficult times.
This is so cringe, man. This is like, I don't know what to say about this. When I named a title this video "Clown Show," I wasn't exaggerating. This is a big clown show. An actor and a pathological liar, they are together and selling BS to the people. Do you guys realize, from the face expressions, from the way Trudeau speaks, from the way Zelensky speaks, these people are not serious politicians. Those are grifters. And Zelensky is an actor. People need to understand that these people are appointed to pursue certain politics that serve the interests of the multinational corporations, second, the bankers, the third, the military industrial complex, and recycling money in Ukraine. Zelensky is leading operation of money laundering operation in Ukraine, just like they did in Afghanistan. They are washing money in Ukraine, tens of billions of dollars from the pockets of the taxpayer money in the United States, in Canada, in European countries, including my tax money, is going to be laundered in Ukraine and goes back to the pockets of the elite. Now they speak a little bit about the corruption in Ukraine for probably one of the two reasons. One, because maybe it's too much now and they need to minimize the corruption because it's too visible and the journalists cannot stay silent about it. Or two, they want to get rid of Zelensky. And this is something else that I want to show you. Another very cringe. Look at this. Please watch this. Please watch this photo. What is this? What is this, guys? I said the hug you give someone before sending him to a human sacrifice pagan ritual. Like, this person, Christian Freeland, like, it seems so much exaggerated, bro. What is this? Like, seriously, as if they're sending him to a pagan ritual, like to sacrifice him, you know? And this is what they're doing, actually. This is what they're doing. Basically, they're sending the Ukrainians to their ultimate death, not because to defend their own country, but for their own financial and geopolitical interests. They're using the Ukrainians as cannon fodder. I've been saying this now since the beginning of the war. And I do not understand how, after 2 years, the Ukrainians, like, probably there are many awake Ukrainians and they're speaking about it, but we do not see their voices in the mainstream media. But this has become too much. This has become too much. People need to wake up, because now Ukraine is hitting also the fleet of Russia in the Black Sea, and this will go out of hands. this will go out of hands. And if it goes out of hands, we will all pay the price. We will all turn into ashes because of a clown actor like Zelensky, like a grifter and a pathological liar like Trudeau, and so many incompetent leaders in the West. Instead of them sitting and discussing how they can organize the multipolar world among the lines that also benefits them, instead of keep this pushing against Russia and China, accept them in the international so-called community, because they are superpowers now. This is the fate of the entire universe, and this is the circle of the history. Every time the empires go up and start going to go down, but once you're going down, you can slow down the going down if you don't do stupid acts and go in war like against Russia and China at the same time. You can accept them on your side and try to benefit from them instead of fighting them and losing and making the fall of the empire very quick. And believe me, guys, nobody has an interest in the fall, the direct fall and the destruction of the United States. I myself do not want that. Nobody has an interest in that, because if the United States falls or something happens in the United States in terms of a bloodshed, a civil war, or a crumbling of an authority, or the empire shakes, the entire world also will shake. There's so much interest for China and Russia in the United States. There's so much technological advancement in the United States that the universe needs so many manufacturing products, so many things that the United States has given to the world. We want for the United States to stay as a power and share the responsibilities and share the power with other superpowers. But the United States thinks that if Russia and China come and participate in the so-called international community now, in the unipolar world, and make it the multipolar world, they think that Russia and China will take revenge and avenge, because this is how they operate. This is this is their mentality. So they project it on the Russians and the Chinese, and they think if the Russians and the Chinese come and create a multipolar world, then they will avenge and they will take revenge from the United States. This is how they see things, right? But speaking of Chrystia Freeland, it's a little bit ironic to see that how she's hugging Zelensky when Ukraine has a Nazi problem, right? And everybody knows that. Nobody can deny that. Even the mainstream media cannot deny now in September 2023. So Chrystia Freeland's granddad was indeed a Nazi collaborator. So much for Russian disinformation. There have been a number of articles circulating about Freeland's Ukrainian grandfather, Mikhail Chomyak, and his ties to the Nazis. Some of those articles have appeared on pro-Russian websites. Freeland, who strongly supports Ukraine and is a major critic of Russia's seizure of the Crimea, suggested to journalists that the articles about her grandfather were part of a Russian disinformation campaign. And by the way, guys, this is from 2017, not in 2023 or 2022. So the president of the Canadian-Ukrainian Congress, he said, this is what he said: fake news, disinformation, and targeting different individuals, it is just so outlandish when you hear some of these allegations, whether they are directed at Minister Freeland or others. Well, it actually isn't so outlandish. Mikhail Chomyak was a Nazi collaborator, and this is coming from the Ottawa Citizens, not coming from RT, not coming from Sputnik, right? What are the sources of the information that Freeland's grandfather worked for the Nazis? For starters, the Ukraine archival records held by the province of Alberta. It has a whole file on Chomyak, including his own details about his days editing the newspaper Krakivsky Visti. Chomyak noted he edited the paper first in, by the way, this newspaper was a Nazi newspaper. Chomyak noted he edited the paper first in Krakow, Poland, and then in Vienna. The reason he edited the paper in Vienna was because he had to flee with his Nazis colleagues as the Russians advanced in Poland, because the Russians tended to execute collaborators as well as the SS members. On Wednesday, the Globe and Mail reported that Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland knew for more than 2 decades that her maternal Ukrainian grandfather was the chief editor of a Nazi newspaper. This photo now I will show you. Photo below shows, do a little bit back so that we all see the photo. Below photo shows Chomyak at a party. He is to the right of the man smoking. So this is him. On the far right hand lower corner of the photo, this in uniform is Emil Gazner, the Nazi administrator in charge of the press for the region, including Krakow. So is this a coincidence that maybe Finland is feeling so much, so has so much feelings for Zelensky and the cause in Ukraine? Who knows? Who knows, guys? But if you watch the press, if you follow the media, you will get the impression that everybody in Canada is in support of Zelensky and in support of sending arms and ammunition and prolonging the war in Ukraine, right? And everybody supports Zelensky because they don't show you the other side of the story. But only the politicians and only the elites and only the people who are really misled or ideologically driven people, only these people still support this policy. Most of the people do not support. And this is a video from Canada. So, Canadian protesters, this is outside the hall, and Zelensky and Trudeau leave this hall and they will walk to the car, and listen to what they say. They say, "Go home, Zelensky, get the F out of our country. It isn't our F war. We know who you work for. We know you are an actor." Check. It's a little bit loud. I will make it a little bit. Grifter.
Oh, that's him. There he is. There he is, Zelensky. Go home.
Mhm.
Get out of our country, Zelensky! Get out of our country! Pay for your fucking war! Pay for your fucking war! No more globalism! No more authoritarianism!
Wallah, bravo, whoever is doing this, bravo.
We know who you work for! We know you're an actor!
Trudeau and Zelensky on the move.
Come on, traitor. Come on, you little traitor. Come on.
Here go the traitors.
We're not going to be impoverished anymore, Justin. We're not going to be impoverished anymore by you, Justin. We're not going to give this country over to you, Justin. You're not going to be the tyrant that you want to be, Justin. Freedom. There you go, Justin. There you are, you little traitor. Traitor, Justin, traitor. You're a traitor. An absolute traitor. A disgusting stain on this nation, Justin. Freedom. Look at all this money this coward is spending while we have people homeless on the streets, while we have food banks that keep up. We've got homeless overrun. And look at all this money this criminal is leaving with, giving another criminal even more and more money for a slaughter of people. Freedom!
I was talking, please mention his name in the comments below. I would like to talk with him and host him on Syriana Analysis. This is not the only video that I found on Twitter or X. There is this another video also from Canada where the people are calling out Zelensky and telling him, "Get the hell out of our country, YouTube." Check.
Stop the war machine! Where's the little traitor? Justin, where are you, you little traitor? We're not going to be impoverished anymore. We're not going to be censored anymore. We're not going to be poisoned anymore. We're choosing freedom. They spend all this money on this gala tonight. How many people are starving in the streets of Toronto? The food banks can't keep up. Homelessness can't keep up. Migrants that come to this country for a better life, where they're putting the partner they're putting on the street corner. This man's an anti-humanist. He's a criminal.
Wow, man. Wow. This is so impressive to see the Canadians are going very brutally against Justin Trudeau, because he really deserves it. But it's not only the people in Canada who are fed up with these policies of funding a war and from the pockets. This is not going from the pockets of Justin Trudeau, right? It's going from the pockets of the people. And not only them, that also it seems that Poland is pissed from Ukraine. And David Sachs says, until recently, Poland was one of Ukraine's strongest allies in the war. Now, Polish President Andrzej Duda compares Ukraine to a desperate drowning person who can pull the rescuer
Mamy
down
trochę do
with
czynienia
him.
tak z tonącym.
Check.
My jesteśmy tym, który ratuje. Jak jest tonący, każdy, kto kiedykolwiek brał udział w ratowaniu tonącego, czy każdy, kto kiedykolwiek uczył się o tym, co dzieje się w tej sytuacji, wie o tym, że człowiek tonący jest niesłychanie niebezpieczny, ponieważ może pociągnąć w głębiny. Ma siłę niewyobrażalną na skutek obawy osobistej, wpływu adrenaliny i może po prostu utopić ratującego. Chwyta się wszystkiego, mówi się przecież w przysłowiu, tonący brzytwy się chwyta. Rzeczywiście tonący chwyta się wszystkiego, czego się da. Trochę to jest taka sytuacja, jak dzisiaj między Polską a Ukrainą. Czy trzeba działać tak, żeby się obronić przed uczynieniem nam szkody przez tonącego? Oczywiście, że musimy tak działać, żeby się obronić przed uczynieniem nam szkody przez tonącego, bo jak tonący doprowadzi do szkody i nas utopi, to nie dostanie pomocy. W związku z powyższym to my musimy pilnować tutaj swoich interesów. To jest przede wszystkim nasz obowiązek i będziemy to robili skutecznie i zdecydowanie.
Wow. There is a lot that happened in Ukraine in this file, right? And I know, guys, you're expecting me to speak about President Bashar al-Assad's visit to China. I'm going to definitely speak about it, but we're expecting more details to come from China and also from Damascus so that I can cover it comprehensively. And I could probably also do an interview with a very dear friend. He contacted me today, and he's also an expert on the Chinese affairs. Maybe we do a joint live streaming together. And we tell you exactly what happened in China with President Bashar al-Assad's visit. And because Xi Jinping and Bashar al-Assad, they declared strategic partnership. What does strategic partnership mean, and what does this visit mean, and how this will reflect on the relationship and on the situation in Syria and everything? We will discuss this very soon, hopefully on Monday. I will see when I can do another live stream or an interview in this regard. But I just want to end up this live stream, guys, with you with a video that is not directly related to what we spoke today, but it also is worth mentioning because there are people who are trying to rewrite history and change history, basically rewrite history and change facts. Boris Johnson the other day said that the Ukrainians helped the defeat of the Nazis, and now von der Leyen, another pathological liar who is an eternal part of the establishment, she says Russia threatens to use nuclear weapons once again. What does once again mean? When was the last time the Russians used nuclear weapons? And Glenn Deason, who is a professor of political economy, he says von der Leyen didn't blame Russia for dropping an atomic bomb on Hiroshima, but she got close with such manipulation of the language. We used to call this war propaganda. Check what she said.
You brought us to your hometown of Hiroshima, the place where you have your roots and which has deeply shaped your life and leadership. Many of your relatives lost their life when the atomic bomb razed Hiroshima to the ground. You have grown up with the stories of the survivors, and you wanted us to listen to the same stories, to face the past and learn something about the future. It was a sobering start to the G7 and one that I will not forget. At a time when Russia threatens to use nuclear weapons once again.
Once again.
It is dangerous. And in the shadow of Hiroshima, it is unforgivable. unforgivable. No one is better poised than Japan to warn us of the extreme danger and of this recklessness. Right from the beginning of this war, Japan's position was clear.
Guys, yeah. I think because Justin Trudeau said that he will support the institutions for mental health in Ukraine, I think some of the politicians that were mentioned today in this video, they need to be sent to some mental illness institutions. They are the ones who need some help, and with their approach, and this really bothers me, and it hurts me to see that humanity could face a very major threat because of the stupidity of some politicians. Like, remember, this was in the 60s, right? 58 or 56, I'm not sure, but the Cuban missile crisis, right? The Cuban Missile Crisis was in 62. Yeah, 62, sorry. In 62, when there was a similar threat of nuclear annihilation, they were always backdoor diplomatic channels, and they spoke and negotiated and discussed on the amount of nuclear weapons here and there. I withdraw from here, you withdraw from there. This was always the case. Always the case. Superpowers always negotiate because they don't want mutual destruction. And I don't understand how can we not speak against, all of us, against these grifters and these clowns and these comedians, actors. Like, they're harming us. They're harming us. They harmed us financially. They harmed us. They harmed our mental health because of the constant anxiety we're living in, because one human mistake, it could cost us World War III. And guys, you need to understand, 70% of the humanity will die if there is a nuclear war, right? So I do such videos for educational purposes. I'm not in supportive of a superpower here or superpower there. I'm in support of a multipolar world where different poles and different powers, they can compete honestly in the market and in politics and in military without destroying each other, and for the benefit of everyone. And this is a different approach that we are seeing also from China, that you can gain influence through trade, through building infrastructure in other countries. You help them to have a better infrastructure, better technological means, and better GDP and better income, and at the same time by influence. The United States, on the other hand, they have this one approach. Everything for them looks like a needle, and they need the hammer to hit it. Everything. It's just a hard approach. Where is the diplomacy? Why the United States has a foreign minister and a state secretary, an entire department? Why does Germany have a foreign minister? Why do they have these politicians? So that they create friendships. They facilitate discussions to solve problems. The role of the foreign ministers is not to declare wars or to make statements that can cause diplomatic tension between two nations, right? Anyways, this was all for today, guys. I think I ranted enough for today. I've been your host, Almassian of Syriana Analysis. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning in and supporting my channel. If you're new, please subscribe, hit the like button, share this video with your friends. And if you want to support my independent work, you can become a patron, link in the description below. And there are also so many means you can support me, guys. And I will see you soon.